How is it possible that the most powerful woman in Syria has lived her entire life in the shadows? She was the only daughter of a feared dictator, the older sister of President Bashar al-Assad, and the most enigmatic figure in the Syrian regime. While the world looked to the men of the Assad family, there was one woman who, from the shadows, made decisions that could change the fate of a nation. Her name, Bashar al-Assad. Intelligent, ambitious, and dangerously silent. She was Hafez al-Assad's favorite daughter, and at the same time, the clan's greatest shame for daring to love someone she shouldn't have. Invisible to the cameras, but omnipresent in power, Bashar became a shadow-ruling enthroned. What secrets does her life hide? Why did her family try to destroy her, and how did she end up exiled after having had everything? She was born in Damascus in 1960, into a family already struggling with debt. Her older sister, also named Bashar, had died in infancy, and her parents decided to repeat the name as if trying to revive what they had lost. From a young age, Bashar displayed brilliant intelligence and a strong character. Hafez adored her, so much so that many within the regiment's circle claimed that, in the law and tradition had allowed it, she, and not her brothers, would have inherited control of the country. But there was an impossible obstacle to ignore. In Syria, a woman can't govern, much less so in an all-white family like her, where the role of woman is even more restricted than in other branches of Islam. This is how Bashar grew up in an environment of absolute power, but also of implicates limits. Although she was the firstborn, her gender relegated her to a silent role while her brothers, Basel, Bashar, Maher, and Mahid, were groomed as key figures in the Syrian regime. She had to move in the shadows, away from the political spotlight. But that didn't make her a passive figure. From a young age, she demonstrated a fierce intelligence and an unbreakable will. She entered Damascus University to study pharmacy, and it was there that she met the man who would change her life and turn her entire family upside down. The man's name was Asif Shaukat. He was a Syrian army officer, 10 years her senior, married, and the father of 5. On top of all that, he came from a poor family, with no political connections or noble blood, exactly the opposite of what was expected of the dictator's daughter. But love knows no class or geopolitical strategies. Bashar and Asif fell madly in love. What was a genuine bond for her was an intolerable scandal for her family. The initial reaction was brutal, almost savage. Basel, the eldest brother, his father's favorite and designated heir to the Syrian throne, not only opposed the romance, he considered it a betrayal of the family honor. Upon finding Bashar with Asif, he violently beat her, even though she was his own sister. Asif was immediately arrested, accused of having sullied the Assad name. It was an exemplary punishment. The message was clear: separate or paid with ruin. But Bashar wasn't about to give up. Defying all expectation, she escaped with Asif to Rome, and they married in secret. The price was extremely high. Just a few months later, in January 1994, Basel died in a car accident. Officially, it was a tragedy caused by excessive speed in bad weather, but in the corridors of power, another version was whispered that his death was not accidental, that someone within the inner circle wanted him out of the way. Some even pointed a finger at Bashar. Nothing was ever confirmed. But from that moment on, their marriage was finally tolerated. Hafez brought them back to the palace. Hafez was promoted, and Bashar resumed her role as a silent but key figure in the affairs of state. During the last years of her father's life, Bashar was his closest advisor. She had an office next to his in the palace. She participated in strategic meetings and made decisions on the economy, healthcare, and defense. In fact, she was the mastermind behind the creation of the national pharmaceutical industry, which allowed Syria to manufacture its own medicines even amid sanctions and war. However, his relationship with his brothers was never stable again. Tensions grew like a contained volcano, especially with Maher, the most impulsive and violent of the clan. known for his explosive temper and cruelty even within the army. In 1999, during a heated argument with Asif over power struggles within the military apparatus, Maher lost control and shot him directly in the stomach. Asif miraculously survived. There was no trial, no scandal. Everything was hushed up by higher orders, but the warning was brutal. In the Assad family, enemies don't always come from outside. Sometimes they have the same last name. And then Bashar arrived, the quiet son trained as an ophthalmologist in London, became president after his father's death, and with him, a new figure arrived, his wife, Asma al-Assad, Western, modern, from a Sunni family, and with ideas that clashed head-on with the regime's traditions. From the very beginning, Bushra rejected her, not only because of her humble origins, but because she began to overshadow her in the media. While Bushra always remained in the shadows, Asma apparent in public, gave speeches and promoted social campaigns. She became the friendly face of the regime, and that, for Bushra, was intolerable. The rivalry was silent, but devastating. Asma, with her Western style, media dominance, and modern appearance, represent everything Bushra despised. A wife who spoke more than the president, who smiled for the cameras, and who stood as the friendliest face of the regime. For Bushra, Asma's every gesture was a calculated affront, a direct provocation. The looks were cold, the words sharp, and the silence deafening. The tensions grew so much that within the palace, there was talk of two opposing courts, that of Bashar and Asma, young and media savvy, versus that of Bushra, traditionalist and backed by the hardest guardians of the system. But 2011 arrived, and with it, war. The Arab Spring uprising reached Syria. The people rose up. The regime responded with brutality. The world watched in horror, and with hope. Some believe that Bushra, a strong and intelligent woman, could act as a moderator. But she didn't. She sided with her brother. She supported the repression, until the sanctions come. Her accounts in Europe were frozen. She was banned from entering the continent. Her world, once again, began to crumble. And then, the final blow, in July 2012, her husband, Asif Shaukat, was killed in a bomb attack during a meeting in Damascus. Official accounts blamed terrorists. Others blamed internal factions within the regime. But for Bushra, the loss was absolute. Without love, without influence, without a country, she decided to flee. With her 5 children, she settled in Dubai. There, in Anumati, she rebuilt her life. The Emirati royal family offered her refuge. Later, her mother joined them as well. Anissa McLough died in exile, never seeing the end of her lineage in Syria. But Bushra still had things to deal with. In 2019, her daughter Anissa was discovered studying in London in violation of sanctions. Her account was frozen. The scandal was brief, but revealing exile hadn't changed the Assad's power or opulence. Today, Bushra is 64 years old. She lives discreetly in Dubai. She doesn't talk about politics. She doesn't give interviews. But her legend lives on. She was the beloved daughter, the woman who defied the dictator, the sister who fought with the president, the rival of the first lady. She was the queen without a crown, the power without a face. And one wonders, what would have become of Syria if she had ruled? Would she have been more just, more cruel, more strategic, or simply just as ruthless? Bushra al-Assad represents the hidden side of power, the woman who, from the shadows, influenced, commanded, and survived tragedy. Her story is not told in textbooks, but her mark is in every corner of Syria's recent past. Because sometimes the threads of destiny are not pulled by those who are seen, but by those who remain in the shadows. If this video left you speechless, imagine what's coming next. Like if you enjoyed the trip, comment on what impressed you most, subscribe so you don't miss any stories of luxury and power, and share it with someone who dreams big. We don't just tell stories here, we live them with you. Thanks for being here, and remember, the best in the world is yet to be discovered. See you in the next video.